I wanted to get everybody rolling here. So Keith, welcome. Keith is my amazing co-host, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Myself, if you haven't heard my name yet, I'm Doyle Bueller, and I'm broadcasting from Perth, Australia. And then we have the amazing Anna Canzano, all the way you're from California, right?
No, I am from
No.
Oregon. So
Oh,
I'm from
Oregon.
the
Okay,
Portland
okay. The West
metropolitan
Coast.
area of Oregon. Yes, West
Oh,
Coast.
that fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Anna.
Well, I'm a broadcast journalist by profession. I spent nearly 20 years as a television anchor and investigative reporter in a very traditional sense at ABC and CBS affiliate TV stations here in the Portland area. And loved my job, just absolutely loved telling people stories and using pictures and sound and educating people about what was happening in the community. In the last few years, I started to feel like it wasn't quite enough for me. I did become a mother too. Had two little daughters. I was already a stepmom, but then had two young ones, and was realizing I wanted more flexibility to set my own schedule because the local news industry really is tough to raise a family within. You work really long hours. It's very unpredictable. You're always just a phone call away from, interrupting dinner and going in if there's something big that's happening. So I started to look for a way that I could still use my skills and also feed this passion that I have to educate people and to give them access to good quality researched information. I kind of felt frustrated at times working in local news because I would interview incredible experts in their fields. So I would go out and I would interview doctors and scientists and industry leaders, but I would have a very small window in which to share the information that they had to offer. I mean, the stories were literally 90 seconds long, if that. Sometimes I could beg, borrow, and steal to get to a 2-minute or a 3-minute long story during certain special times of the year. But I really felt like collectively, there are amazing experts with fantastic information to share. And I wanted to figure out a better conduit to help share that information. Simultaneously, I was watching the advent of social media. I had the sense that people were not sitting around at 5 o'clock as much anymore watching the local news on their televisions. They were getting the news on their phones, on social media. And I guess I wanted to be part of the emerging trend. I wanted to be part of what was coming up that was new and take advantage of the ability to also engage with an audience in a pretty meaningful way in a live format as well.
Wow, fascinating. Keith, how are you? Oh, Keith, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Is
Oh,
that
there we
better?
go. Yeah, that's better.
Yes.
Yep.
We had a few technical challenges, and in a way, I'm really appreciative of what Anna's doing because, we are in an environment now where people are experimenting with the longer form. I totally agree with you. You watch TV and you get a snippet of this really great story, but really you want to hear the backstory. You want to hear the real story. And so I think that we're now starting to feel that we want a bit more wholesomeness in our life, a bit more sort of depth. So this format, live streaming, which is absolutely quintessentially long form, means that we can talk as long as we want and we're in charge, right? There's some responsibilities there. But
But we can
the thing
still switch the channel, Keith. We can still
people
switch
can
the
still turn
channel.
me off. I know, but I want to pick up on a couple of things that Anna just said based on some stats that we did this week. Only 27% of people say they now get their video content from TV. Less than 30%. And well over, and you can share this stat or this graphic if you like, or we can put it in the replay. Well over 30% of people say they now grab their phone and get a quick fix on the run. That is the life we are now living.
Yeah.
A substantial amount of people say, look, I still like the visual format, so I use my laptop. And a smaller amount, again, say they might use their tablet. But a very significant amount of people are saying, mate, I don't watch TV, really, except if I'm watching Netflix at night. I'm not getting my news from TV. I'm getting it on as a trending topic when it comes out, snip right there on the hour, every hour. And so Del and I, we wanted to be part of that story. We wanted to say, look, you don't know how to do this yet. We don't know how to do this yet. Like, this is the first time today we're using eCAMM in combination with Skype and sending it to Facebook Live, right? That's right there. We've never done that before. We're live doing it. And I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty proud that we're having the courage to say, this could really stuff up.
Yeah, and sometimes it does.
Last week it did. It was awful.
But that's okay. And that's part of the challenge too.
I wanted to showcase a couple of things. A big hello to Linda, who's listening and watching from Connecticut.
Yeah,
she's
actually, Linda joined in. Ray? So yeah, Linda Ray. Hey, Linda, good. Thanks for joining in. She actually said later on, my partner and I did a live music show, but with no platform other than Facebook Live. Oh wow! Today did my first StreamYard video. Fantastic. Yeah. So and that's yeah. Go ahead.
Well, Linda really is really excited about StreamYard because she's just starting, yeah. And this show's all about getting started, but also going deeper. And the reason I was very inspired by you, Anna, is your show looks really visually pleasing, and I really, really, really want to pull apart how you do that so that we can inspire other people. Because this is the new journalism. You're on the cutting edge of this. You know where this is going. You're doing it.
It's funny because the photographers I used to work with, one in particular, he nicknamed me Gadget Girl. So whenever we were out in the field, I would always be showing him like, hey, check out this new fold out keyboard that I got. I was always the first who was interested in new technology and how to use it and really how to make your life better, and really that's the aim of my show. It's called That Expert Show. And really its mission is to help people live smarter, healthier, and happier. And so I book experts based on that basic premise, which is intentionally broad, because we do shows on everything from how to color your hair at home right now because you can't get to your hairstylist, to how to
what are your tips?
Plan for it's called spray until you can get to your hairstylist. And then we do shows on how to plan for smartly to plan for your kids' college career, college savings, and that whole admissions strategy. I mean, it's really that the topics are far and wide, and that's what's so enjoyable, because we talk about health, we talk about lifestyle, we talk about the everyday types of things that most of us can relate to in some way.
And the thing I love, because I listened to a couple of your shows, the thing I love is that you take that journalistic style, but you make it long form. So it's not just a grab in the park for 3 minutes to fill in between the sport and the whatever else. This is a real show with lots of great deep content. Like last week, you interviewed someone about going back to work and what sort of gloves do you use and what mask can you buy, and should you get one yourself or should the boss pay for it? These are really good questions. These are really strong questions.
I mean, that's particularly relevant right now because the Centers for Disease Control here in the U.S. Still have not issued hard guidelines for different workplaces and different industries on what to do with the coronavirus. So the entity that I interviewed, which was the American Industrial Hygiene Association, I actually saw them because Mark Cuban, billionaire entrepreneur, had mentioned them as a fantastic resource on LinkedIn and said, look, if you're looking for guidelines, if you're getting your business, your organization ready to go back to work, these are the people that you need to consult with and talk to. They have an industry by industry breakdown on what you should be doing to be safe as you go back to work. So we booked them and they were fantastic. And it just feels really good as a journalist to put quality information out there in a timely manner that will be helpful to people.
And what Doyle and I say is that we're democratizing content. Like in Australia, we like the rest of the world, we get given what we're given. The news channels tell us what they want us to know, and they load it in their direction, depending on what sells or what gives them more ads or what budget they have. But what happens if you want to get deeper and find out, hey, what was that gadget she was talking about? Tell me about that fold-out keyboard. Where can I get one of them? You're going deeper. I love that. I just love that.
Well, in defense of my friends who are still working, very hard in local news, I think that local news as a whole, as a product, both in print and broadcast, is improving in its content. Like, they realize that they can't just be the two-dimensional, half-hour newscast at 5 o'clock anymore. They are multimedia. They have robust websites. They have a lot of supportive information.
Wow.
Like, reporters will generate most of the time the web content that goes with the story they were assigned to produce that day. And so I think that local news journalists realize it's all converging, and you can't just rely on people sitting down to watch the news anymore. They have to be much more full service in the type of information that they're offering, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
We actually have a few other people joining us. Gail Murphy joining in. Hey, Gail.
She's a guest on our Keep It. We're doing a show called Keeping It Real.
Fantastic.
How to make this is really important. What we're doing here is really important. People want to share, but we don't want people to be in their lounge room with the kids running around and washing in the background, right? So,
well,
today,
unless that's your show, Keith, if that's part of your show.
That's the concept. Right? So today, for instance, just as a shout out to Gail, I'm using Skype with the blurred background feature. Now, that's a really simple hack that comes with the camera. That makes my background slightly look better. Even if a child came running in, you probably wouldn't see it. So Gail's coming on the show for Keeping It Real.
Fantastic. And then also Dave Clare, he's a fellow Perthonian as well. Hey, Dave, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah.
Excellent. So one of the topics that we wanted to talk about was, how do we get a top-rated show? And I mean production quality here, Anna, and that's sort of why we wanted to talk to you as well. Is what in your opinion makes sort of the breakthrough of having a great show as opposed to just sort of an average show?
I think we see a lot of, well, it's good enough right now. I mean, even when you see like the cable news networks, they're doing interviews just via Skype or Zoom. And I would say even a decade ago, the major networks wouldn't have considered putting people on television with a video quality that was, to be frank, subpar, because, you can only go so far with certain signals and limitations. It used to be that, a satellite uplink was the gold standard that everybody abided by, and you just wouldn't even conceive of interviewing somebody with anything less than that if they were, in a different town, for example. So I think in a way, people's expectations have lowered because we are so used to doing Zoom chats now. I mean, my, kindergartner is doing Zoom chats with her fellow classmates and her teacher. Like, if it's good enough for her, it's going to be good enough, for a lot of people, right? But if you really want to produce a quality looking live stream broadcast, it does take some investment of equipment, a good camera, a good system. I happen to have an audio board that we use. The main piece of equipment that I invested in was something called a TriCaster Mini. It is a rectangular black box about this size, and it is made by a company called NewTek. And what it does is it takes in all of the different all of the different material. So it's taking in the live shot from the camera. It's taking in the Skype signal on a separate laptop. And there is a separate monitor and keyboard that is connected to the TriCaster Mini. So you're essentially recreating what would have been a full newsroom, a news studio control room in a much smaller, compact, more affordable space. So with the TriCaster Mini, you can create fonts, so you can create the name and titles. You can insert B-roll into your live streams. Like you can literally just upload B-roll. And I've recently started to experiment with that. I've been doing the show for about 1.5 years, and I've really just tried to like get every step of it tightened down technically and then added on more layers. So recently I've decided, it's kind of boring to go half an hour just looking at talking heads. Like you can do it, but it's much more interesting to incorporate a little bit of like moving pictures or some kind of images layered on top of what you're saying, because
can I pick up
let's
on
face
that?
it, we're visual people.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. Yeah, Keith, go ahead.
I
Lots to talk
noticed
about.
my take on that, as you may have noticed if you've been following my feed, is that we've got the original show, which goes whatever length of time, but that the power of social media is that you can give them little teasers. And I've noticed that what you do is you put the insert of the guest on the screen. How do you do that? Is that part of TriCaster, or is that part of your editing suite?
You mean like a split screen, or?
Well, you've got a television screen behind you, or a screen behind you with the expert show graphic, but often you have the person in there. How do you do that?
Yeah. So that's strictly the TriCaster. So it's a combination of factors, actually. I'm very thankful to my friends in broadcast news who I maintained relationships with after leaving my traditional role, who helped me create the graphic. One person in particular helped me create the graphic for this, which is, displayed onto the green screen. And the TriCaster is essentially what helps you plug the live picture that you want to put into the into whatever aspect of the graphic that you want. So the TriCaster itself actually comes with multiple sort of default set templates that you can either use as is. So whether you're a musician, whether you are a vlogger, whether you are into politics, there's all different formats. Whether you want to do a sports show or something, there's all different kind of pseudo sets, virtual sets that come with the TriCaster that you can use, or you can also alter them based on your own branding, if that makes sense.
The thing that's really powerful about what you've said there is because Linda, for instance, who's on the show, who said, look, 4K, it's such a hassle. I'm just going to start with StreamYard. It's $25 a month. It's 720p. That's enough. And it is enough because most people are on their phones. But what about if you really had a sense that you want it to look like TV, that you really want it to look great? You're not just content to interview people side by side and just throw it out there. And so this whole show, this whole 10-part series is about starting small with what you can afford and what you have. But it's also about honouring that eventually we want it to be a great experience for people, which is why, and it's a good segue back into what Doyle's doing here with eCAMM. eCAMM is a Mac product, which only works on Mac, which means you have to have a Mac to use it, which in itself is a limitation. But look at what we're doing here compared to what it looks like on StreamYard. So with eCAMM, we're almost getting that quality you're getting with a cloud solution that costs $12 a month. Can you believe it?
Almost.
$12 a month.
Yeah, that's very affordable.
Yeah.
And I think, people will only I think people will be very interested in the information that you derive from these experiments, because at the end, you and Doyle will be able to tell them, okay, here's what we learned. We experimented with all the different platforms. This one sucked. This one was good. This one was good for these reasons. I mean, I think that's incredibly useful information.
Yeah. How does that play into the decoder that we've got, Doyle? Do you want to start with how eCAMM is working compared to the other sites we've tried?
Yeah, definitely. And we can start to go through that criteria as well. One thing that I want to add was that, this is an experiment. And we actually have a comment from Linda. I'll just throw it up because it kind of relates to that. there's a lot of tools and there's a lot of options, and it can feel quite overwhelming over time. So it's important to try it out. And Annie, you said it perfectly. Like, you started pretty simple. You did have some great foundation, and then moved from there because you didn't want to have a plain and ordinary show. So it's something that you can evolve. Like, from the live streaming perspective, Keith has been doing it for quite a number of years, myself as well. I started live streaming in 2017 with a different platform, and this show that we decided to put together was really, how do we actually dissect that, decode what's really important here. So putting it together in terms of an experiment and seeing what works and what doesn't, and how complicated it is. And and for a business, if you're trying to do these things, we really kind of needed to say, okay, how do we actually put these pieces together? Sometimes experiments work, sometimes they don't.
And the last week they didn't, and that's
Yeah.
someone yesterday called me the evil Knievel of live stream. Last week we jumped over 26 cars and we didn't quite make it.
You landed short.
We made it over 23. But those last three, those were the killer.
It makes the show fun. Makes the show. But look, I have got a question for you, Anna.
Go ahead, and I'll queue up the other stuff, Keith. Based
on production, you've said that you use TriCaster, which makes your show look great. It looks like TV. It's in a box, and there's a cost there. And I'll feature this in the show notes. And I've been researching them. They're a box that looks like an old style VCR. Yeah. Quite, but really chunky. What I'm really interested in is two main questions about social. Where are you sending the show, and which sites work best? Because these are the two questions we get all the time. Where should I send it, and what works?
Mm-hmm. And see, when I started this, I thought to myself, if I'm going to I do my shows intentionally on Monday, because that way they're around all week long to garner as many views and listens and whatnot as possible. It's the start of the week. I have all week long to promote the show, take snippets of it, and try to feature it on different platforms. I try to send it to as many places as possible. So we go live on Facebook and Twitter. Twitter's been a little hinky lately. I had issues with it. So again, benefit of the TriCaster is that you can multi-stream to multiple platforms. So ideally, when it works, which 80% of the time it has worked well, you can live stream to Facebook as well as Twitter simultaneously. It does it for you as long as you key in all of your information properly. So
when
that's
you say
where
Twitter,
I
you
am.
mean Periscope?
Yes, Periscope. So like Periscope, which works in conjunction with Twitter, I guess.
Yep.
And then, so ideally I'm live in both of those places. Twitter has started recently working, which is good. It wasn't working for a while. Like, I don't know quite why, but something was wrong where if we were live on Facebook, it wouldn't do Twitter. If we were doing Twitter, it would kick off the one on Facebook. So I just stuck with Facebook because that's where my primary audience is. Like my demographic is primarily women 25 to 54, and they're on Facebook. So, and then my concept was, if I'm going to put the effort in, having guests, taking up their time, interviewing them for half an hour. I cut my show off at half an hour because I frankly think that's all the time people have, the attention span for. After the show, I have a very busy afternoon. So I post a version of it to YouTube. I post it now in full to IGTV, which IGTV previously would only let you post like 10 minutes of your show, and almost by accident, I think I recently realized that it would let me do the whole show. So
Can you do that 16:9, or wasn't it a 9:16 format? Wasn't it a vertical format for a long time?
It was for a long time, but it technically is not it technically is vertical, but I use Adobe Premiere to export it in a certain format that IGTV will accept. So I don't have to do too much to it. It's still essentially 16 by 9, but on a vertical background, if that makes sense.
Okay. No worries. Yeah.
And so, and that was a learning curve, trying to figure that out. I didn't do IGTV right at the start. That was something that I learned along the way. And then I also put it out. So YouTube, IGTV. I use Adobe products. So I also use Adobe Audition to strip out the video and fine tune the audio. I might go in and listen to see if there are some hot spots and, punch out some of the overmodulation peaks, which is relatively easy to do with Adobe Audition. And then I use a web host, if that's the right term for it, and then kick it out onto Apple iTunes and Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, all those, podcast platforms.
And you also put it onto Vimeo, don't you?
I don't. I used to do Vimeo, and then they started charging, I think, based on the length of the content that I was, putting on there. And I was trying to decide whether it was really worth it for me to be on yet another platform. And I may wind up going back to Vimeo someday, but I just haven't found that I was lacking, so I stopped using Vimeo.
We're very much kindred spirits here. I mean, you're trying lots of different things, and because we love trying them, a la the fold-out keyboard, I really do want one of them. But my friends are saying, mate, you do the experiments. You just tell me what's working. I don't care about IGTV, what you just said. I don't care about that. Just tell me what works. I'll just do what's working. So the second part of the question is, where are you getting the hits? Where are you getting the traction? What's bubbling up and sort of thumping it?
It's interesting because it really depends on the content of the show. So certain topics do really well on Instagram, like they just blow up on IGTV. And then others do much better on Facebook because it's a topic that people want to share with others, and so it garners a lot of views. Frankly, the key to a lot of my reach has to do with a partnership that I have with the newspaper here in Oregon, the Oregonian, which allows me to cross-post my show every week to their Facebook page. So as I go live on my Facebook page, I'm simultaneously going live on the Oregonians' Facebook page, which has, I think at this point, roughly 500,000 subscribers. And so to be able to tap into that audience and share the information with the Oregonians audience has really been key for me. So it really just, I've found that it really just depends on the topic. Sometimes things do much better on YouTube, and sometimes they're better on Facebook. Sometimes they're better on Instagram. It depends on the topic.
I'm going to throw to Doyle in a minute, but I want to just pick up on what you said. The reason why the Oregonian has picked up your show, and this is the reason to take things up a notch, just in case people in the audience are thinking, why am I bothering with this? Is because the Oregonian said, okay, well, this show is quality. It sounds good. It looks good. I can feel confident that I can send this to my audience. If you just want to do stuff in your bedroom on your laptop and send it to your friends, no worries. Do whatever you want. Do the cheapest option, really fast and funky, as I call it. But what you're doing is you're moving the needle. You're fixing the audio, you're fixing the background, you're making sure that the lighting's right, you're getting good quality guests, you're keeping it short. And that means that the Oregonian and other sites like that can say, look, this is content I can trust. This is the reason we're doing this show. Is eCAMM worth doing? It's a lot of layers. It's a lot harder to use eCAMM than it is to use StreamYard. What's the advantage to us? And that's why I want to throw back to Doyle. Doyle, what do you think the main differences are here with this show between, say, StreamYard and just going straight to Periscope, for instance?
Yeah, there is that challenge without question in terms of the technology, and what we've tried to do is break these down into, just getting started, more advanced, and then experts. So we've got, Anna, who's definitely an expert in using the expert tools. Is eCAMM an expert tool? Yes, potentially, but there is a pretty good learning curve, as Linda indicated earlier. So you have to take a look at what is that foundation, right? We talk about live streaming ABCs in terms of what's really important and how do we actually build upon that. And it is it is interesting because you do have to do this for quite some time. And even if you are doing it, like for example, I said I've been live streaming for years, and if I, have a gap of a month or whatever, a couple of weeks, you come back and it's like, oh, did I press that right button? Or, did I forget to push this button? Kind of thing. So you really kind of have to stay in tune. And I love what you're doing, Anna, because you say, you go through that detail that's just phenomenal. And I think that's why, your show is doing so well as well. So,
I can
yeah,
totally
so
relate to you,
yeah.
though, about like literally it's the difference of not pressing a button and you're not live, or not pressing that button and there's no audio, or, it's, even for people that are comfortable with technology, which I would say that I'm fairly comfortable with technology, there's a lot to learn. And so, for anyone that's embarking on the journey, just to know that, have patience, do so many practice broadcasts, enlist the help of your friends. Like when I launched this show, I was calling up my cousins on Skype. I was calling up my friend who is in the acting world, because they were my guests. They were my people that I was interviewing, because I wanted to have so many practice runs under my belt before I actually went live with a product that I wasn't proud of. So.
Yeah, and that's key, is that you're looking at it as a professional tool. One thing I have noticed, sort of just as a conversation topic, I know I want to talk about eCAMM and all that kind of stuff, but it's interesting that during the shelter in place and the lockdown and all that stuff, you do have, like you said, Anna, the show hosts that have gone sort of home to broadcast their show, like Stephen Colbert and comedians and Saturday Night Live, and they're really pulling it together. But I find what's really, really missing is that laugh track, right? Like Stephen Colbert will say some jokes and it's like, dead silence. It's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to laugh now.
I know. It's so hard. It's really, I mean, in Saturday Night Live, I mean, they're doing what they can too, but it's just not quite the same, is it? To have, it's
Yeah.
a different energy altogether.
Yeah, no, definitely. So there's something that sort of has to be conveyed too. We could have a laugh track too, I guess, but that's more complicated as well.
A laugh
Part,
track.
part of what
Well, no,
there
Stephen
you
Colbert
go,
doesn't
Anna.
have
That's
a
what you
laugh
can.
track. He has a live audience. Like he has real people in his audience laughing.
But one thing that could happen, and this is a layer that Doyle and I have talked about, it's quite hard because Doyle's running the show. He's got big sort of production there. But we've got people watching the show making comments. And please don't be disappointed if we're not feeding you in, because it's another layer we have to add. We're live.
We'll add that. Linda just actually put a comment. I guess I should rethink my living room wall as a background. So no, you can use it. Like you don't have to have a broadcast studio, right? And that's the important thing to understand, is that you can start with that. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to start with a green screen, because it can be complicated and can be quite finicky. Did you add one right from the beginning, Anna? A green screen?
Did I have a green screen right from the beginning? Yes.
Okay.
I guess, yeah, I'm fortunate. My husband's very handy. He grew up on an acre and is very comfortable building things. Like he's a journalist as well by nature, but he really enjoys, getting out his tools and building things. So he researched how to build a green screen studio and built this studio. And the beauty of it is that we've both been able to, I just feel so blessed. We've both been able to continue working. He does a sports radio show and has continued to broadcast his radio show from this same studio, just the other end of the studio. So we, some time back before I launched this project, we had a high-speed line, like a business internet line put in that could handle the bandwidth, because, one of the things is when you're sending and receiving video that is a high resolution, if you don't have the internet bandwidth to support that, you will have a big pixelated picture, you'll have dropouts, you'll have audio issues. And so it was very important to have that high-speed line available, and now especially so since he's broadcasting his radio show from home.
Fantastic. Yeah, and then that certainly helps. It allows you to sort of, you've got that trademark style, right? You've got the screen and the green screen, which is fantastic. A neat little trick you said too is that your green screen is actually curved, right?
Yes, so this is U-shaped, it's concave, and so the research that he did showed that if you have a concave, so you can see where my hands, you might be able to see, I don't know if you can see, but if you have a curved background, it actually adds more depth to whatever image you're placing onto it.
Okay,
So
cool.
it's just
Well,
adds to kind of the 3D effect of whatever sort of virtual studio you might try to use.
fascinating. Excellent. All right, cool. Let's deep dive into eCAMM. I do want to do a show check, Anna, just to make sure that you're comfortable with time-wise. Are you okay? Yeah.
I'm okay, yes, for now.
All right, cool. Just, yeah, we are live, so it's okay. If you have to attend to the kids or whatever the case may be. All right, so let's get into eCAMM, and we'll try to go through this as quickly as possible and then get back to sort of more of the top production tips and that sort of thing that you've been providing. So I'm not going to share my screen because I am a little bit conscious that we did drop out last time and it might be a hardware issue on my end. So I'm just going to kind of talk about it. I'm going to be a talking head for a little bit. But we have the 5 categories as well, or sorry, the 4 categories. Category 1, 5 categories. Yes, category 1 is presentation. So how many guests and how do they connect with eCAMM? With eCAMM, it's basically through Skype, which was actually quite interesting because we'd never actually encountered that. Usually, if you're allowed guests, you can bring them in directly. Whereas on other platforms like StreamYard, yeah, you can bring them directly. So Skype was quite interesting. We had to set that up in advance to make sure that it worked as well. Chroma keys and background blur, yes, eCAMM, it's a very sophisticated platform. It allows you to do backgrounds and chroma keys and all that kind of stuff as well. If you're more of the advanced user. Screen share, we can do a screen share. What I have found is that it doesn't allow you to do them. It kind of takes either the camera side of things. So as if I'm broadcasting on eCAMM, I can either have my camera or I can have the screen share or a combination of both. So audience experience and interaction ability. I think we've got a lot of some good comments and we can see the feed from, it doesn't matter which channel. I don't think I can see which where they're actually viewing it though, but which is interesting. But it's something to think about. Do you want to have a show that interacts with you? And Anna, do you have a show that's live and do you interact with the comments or do you kind of just broadcast, focus on your guest and go from there?
That was one of the reasons that I wanted to do the show live was because I enjoy knowing that there's a live audience out there, like living, breathing people out there that are watching and engaged and communicating with me during the show, contributing their suggestions and their questions. Because one of my frustrations, like, you know, we've all seen TED Talks, and TED Talks are awesome and they're amazing and it's great information, but it's a one-sided conversation. It's just the speaker talking to you. And I don't know about you, but I often have questions that crop into my mind when I'm watching a TED Talk.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give people who might be watching live the opportunity to tell me their questions live and for me to mediate that question and field it to the expert that I'm interviewing. So there's that live element that I enjoy. I also always post about what topic and expert that I'll be interviewing next in advance of the show. That way, if people want to submit their questions in advance, I find that helps me because I don't have all the answers. I don't always, like, the motto of the show is it's that expert show where you help run the show. And I do mean that because often the suggestions and the questions that people submit prior to the show helped give me a sense and direct me toward the type of content that they actually want to know about from that expert.
Yeah,
you know,
fascinating.
there's a concept here called "Thank God You're Here" in Pro, and you know these shows can be painful to watch when it doesn't go right, but when it goes really well,
That was like my first 5 minutes here when we went live and then everybody dropped out. It's like, oh, okay.
But you know, using the TED Talk analogy, TED Talks are great. They go 18 minutes, but I am watching someone. And they're a high production level and they're fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different flow when I, as an audience member, can participate. there's something about that that's actually unmistakable. That I'm really starting to become quite addicted to it.
Well, it's that human connection, really. When you think about it, it's we do need that, and we do sort of need to connect with people. On the TED example, actually, I was listening to one like 2 weeks ago. TEDx Copenhagen. Andrea Cates from California was one of the speakers, and it was just that. It was fascinating because instead of just her talking about her topic, it was more having the moderator ask her questions, and then they're getting questions live, and it was something that I'd never seen before, and it was really cool. Yeah. So I think we're seeing this whole wave, and even if we can go back and watch a TED on stage or TEDx on stage, that seems like a great medium, because now you can connect with people around the world. I don't have to be in Copenhagen. I can be in Perth, Australia, right? At a click of a button, which is fascinating. All right, let's continue with category number 2 is logistics, scheduling in advance. This is a huge issue that Keith and I have found that it's really a go or no go. And so what I'm saying here is that some platforms allow you to schedule a show in advance, but only on specific channels, or you can kind of pre-schedule a show and that sort of thing with something like Restream. The problem is that if you can't schedule a show in advance, you can't send out a link to your audience.
Yeah.
And Anna, maybe we can talk about this for a bit, but you can with Facebook. So for example, on eCAMM, I either have the choice of going to direct to Facebook, my Facebook page, and then I can schedule that link, and then I can use that link. We used it in some of the tweets and on Eventbrite and that sort of thing. So it's to prepare the audience that our show is coming. Here's going to be the link. The other alternative is I broadcast to Restream, but guess what? I can't then secure a link to send to people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you overcome that, Anna? Like, how do you actually schedule your shows?
I schedule my shows through Facebook. I
Okay.
can't really schedule them. I mean, I guess I can tweet the link, to the scheduled event on Facebook, but I find often that people don't like to cross platforms. Like if I'm in Twitter and then I click on a Facebook link, now I have to log into Facebook, and it's like, like people just, it's not, the ease of access is really important. So I think frankly, one of the keys with Facebook is being able to hit the get a reminder, that this person is going live. So as you are preparing to go live, Facebook pushes the notification onto somebody's profile that, hey, Anna on that expert show is getting ready to go live here. Do you want to join? No, really, she's going live, and it pops up. And again, it's all about, the social media platform and what it is doing to prioritize its live streams. So I think there is definitely an advantage there.
Because we can use something like Restream, and that was the decision that Keith and I made, is we can use Restream, which then broadcasts on Facebook and Periscope and LinkedIn and Facebook pages and YouTube as well, and many others also. But we can't schedule it in advance, so then we can't notify our audience to say, hey, this is where we're going to be on Thursday morning, kind of thing. So
let me pick up on that, because that was a huge pain point for us. Huge. And what I'm very proud of, and I want to celebrate the wins, because we're doing this as we go. We're up to our 23rd car. We're on the ramp. Can we make it? Evel Knievel, go, eat your heart out. So, Doyle came up with this really cool solution, and I've got to give him kudos for this. We actually created an Eventbrite page leading to a Facebook event, right? I really, really want to give Doyle kudos for that. But what we did sacrifice is that this show is not going to Periscope, which cuts me in half, because I'm a Twitter dude, right? So we had to make a decision. Do we want to schedule ahead, or do we want to multi-stream? You can't have everything, right? As the Rolling Stones said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try real hard, you can get what you need. Yeah?
Which is the ability to broadcast live, which is what we're doing. So, yeah.
So what we did here is we made a decision that we would focus on Facebook and use an Eventbrite link to get people in, which means that 2 days before, I could start telling people about it. Because my role in this show is that I'm really the guy behind the scenes, as you know, just thumping it out, days ahead. And people are going, mate, have you got a link? I know you have to turn up on the day at the time. Well, no one's doing that. No one wants to turn up on the day at the time. Like, and when are you going to remind me? I mean, I've got kids, I've got to take them to school, I've got things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of scheduling ahead means that we fit into people's busy lives. Hey, we really are going live in 5 minutes. You got time? Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Stop everything.
Yeah.
Drop the kids off.
You do.
Sit down.
Yeah. You do get the Facebook reminder. Like you can do that technically, but yeah, unless you're on Facebook, you're not going to get that. So we just want to try it again. That's part of this process, is experimenting what works and what doesn't. But yeah, having that interjecting the Eventbrite so people can register for the actual show. There's no cost. It's just you register and you get the link kind of thing. But at least then we can schedule it. Because if you compare something like Restream, where we can then upload old episodes and then rebroadcast those like a TV station, we can do that at any time. But it was that initial live experience that we wanted to really capture as best as possible.
And it fits in with email.
And it fits in with email, yeah. So number 7 was built-in registration and event pages. You can, in eCAMM, select the specific channel you want to broadcast, but Facebook is the only one that you can actually schedule in advance. So it's kind of limited there, and you have to make that choice. Ease of use and setup. eCAMM is quite challenging. Like there's a lot to know and a lot to see, and there's a lot of little windows and buttons and all that kind of things. It's nowhere near as easy as something like StreamYard. Yeah. Yeah.
Matrix an exception in one little package.
Yeah. And it's true, because I was setting up eCAMM, and it's like, oh, well, how do I connect it to Zoom? Okay, I can connect it to Zoom, but then it's like, well, I want to connect my iPad through Zoom, through eCAMM, so that I can then, sketch and write some notes that people can actually see, like you're teaching a class. But then you go like these multiple levels deep, and it's like, ooh, I have no idea where I am between the Matrix and Inception, as Keith likes to say. All right, practice runs and record only without going live. Yes, you can do that, which is really important. And Anna, you said that you practiced, getting going. Do you still practice from time to time just to kind of set things up, or?
Yeah, well, I always do a Skype check. So I use Skype. That's the platform, I guess, that the TriCaster uses to connect with the guests. And I always do a pre-check the week before. So, the same day that I'm doing the broadcast, I'm also doing a Skype check with next week's guest, because I also send equipment ahead to that guest, a microphone, like a lavalier mic and an earpiece, which may or may not be as relevant in the coming weeks and months, because it feels like everybody's getting their own stuff now, because everybody's doing this in some form at home. But I really wanted to make sure that I had good audio quality, especially when I turn around and repurpose the show for the podcast. I wanted the best audio quality that I could get for a reasonable price. So I've purchased multiple sets of microphone earpiece combinations that I send ahead to the guests. And so the check that I do the week before is to make sure that we can walk them through all of that setup and make sure that there's no hiccups, and we can catch any hiccups early enough to correct them before the actual show.
And then what happens if there is a hiccup at the start or during?
We've done all kinds of things. I mean, we've sent, there was a gal that I interviewed who is a dating expert, and she was in London. And for whatever reason, the equipment we initially sent her didn't work. And so I was able to quickly order up some new equipment and send it to her in the UK. And it was good to go by the time we actually did the show a week later.
Let me pick up on this, though. Gail, who may still be on the call in LA, she's coming on the show to do this Keep It Real version. She said to me, Keith, there's nothing like being mic'd up by a union professional, because she's worked in TV. And she said that the thing that she's noticing is that because it's so easy, people turn up 5 minutes before and they just slip their headphones on and they're ready, right? And the idea that you've sent equipment ahead of time and you've checked, that's so impressive, because the chances of the glitches occurring are very much reduced. And also, you've got this standard like we are noticing now, because live streaming is becoming a thing, that people have got all vast array of sort of quality standards, aren't they? And some of them are really, they're quite unwatchable. They're so excited that they've been able to turn the telly or the webcam on and look at it and push record. That for them is like a technical achievement.
Or they have blue screen graphics.
and you're thinking, well, okay, no worries. I honour the fact that you're having a go, but there's a minimum, isn't there? There's a minimum standard that we should all be abiding by, just for the consumer, just for the client, just for the viewer, just to be fair to them. I've seen people making podcasts in their car on the way home from work, and it's unlistenable, really. It's just the wind's blowing and they're just talking while they're in the car park. And I mean, there comes a time when you just have to at least push some effort in, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think lighting is a big part of that. Lighting and framing, it's the simplest thing, but you don't realize, like, for example, before the pandemic, and most people were interviewing with us from their offices, which usually have fluorescent lighting, which is not very pleasing to the eye. It's just not very flattering to most skin tones, and it's the simplest thing. What's that?
Makes it look pink. Is that why that's happening? Is that why I'm noticing?
I mean, people look they just kind of look like greenish or bluish in tone, yellowish. It's just not flattering, and really the best light is natural light. So the check that we do the week prior with people also covers, okay, where will you be doing the interview? Where we ask them to do the check with us from the actual location where they plan to do the interview, so we can see what they look like and sound like, and make sure that the location they're using has enough internet speed to support a Skype interview. And so we'll work with them a little bit on framing, like, is there a window in the room? Can you move to a place that has a window in the room? Do you have one of those ring lights? Do you have any kind of lighting so that we're not interviewing you in silhouette? Those are just, some of the basic things that we do to try and improve the quality of how the show looks and sounds.
We've got to do another show on this. We've got to do a whole show on this.
It's not a crime drama when they have the spotlight in the back, right? It's like, no, we're talking business here. Hey, I just got a message from Erica McKenzie. She joined in recently. She had an issue trying to connect with Zoom. Okay, she could not. That's okay. That's okay, Erica. We actually had a few problems too, so you're doing fine there. Let's continue with the live streaming criteria. We're in category 3, business and ROI, cost and freemium models. So they do have a free trial, but they do obviously have an annual type subscription where you get sort of the premium level features of green screen and more sort of buttons to push as well. So as you want to make it more complicated, it's going to cost you a little bit more. Number 11, business aspects, selling and marketing. There isn't really sort of that interface, built-in marketing kind of thing. You still kind of have to extend that out and say, go to Twitter and say, hey, we're going to be appearing, or go to Eventbrite and create something like that as well. The cool thing about using a third-party tool like Eventbrite or even a Facebook event is that then you can actually promote that as well through a paid promotion, those kinds of things. Networkability, open format. I think we can bring in up to 8 people on Skype on eCAMM. Keith, I think you checked that out.
It's 6
it's
in
not
total.
A lot. 6 in total.
People,
okay.
6 people in total. Exactly like StreamYard.
Okay. So you're kind of limited that way. If you want to sort of get with groups, you use something like a Zoom meeting, or Remo as well, which adds sort of that level of networking. So it's really just intended for creating a show, which is fantastic, bringing in a few guests, and up to 6. That's actually pretty impressive because most of them only have like 3 or 4. Be Live is 4 people total. Restream is 4 people. They used to be 2, and then a couple weeks ago they were only the host. So that's something to consider. If you want to bring in guests, if you want to have more community, you have to look at something like Zoom as well. Category 4 out of 5, technical, multiple channel broadcasting and quantity. This was really cool because you can connect it with a tool like Restream so that you can broadcast to, like I said, Periscope, LinkedIn, Facebook pages, Facebook profiles. What else? YouTube, obviously, as well. So you can do that, but you have to decide in advance, do you want to reserve that Facebook link that then you can send people to, or do you just want to sort of say, hey, I'm going live Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Please join me on my channels type thing. So you can kind of look at that as well. Video broadcast quality and options. This is a good one because you can broadcast in 1080. StreamYard you can't. Be Live you can't. It's still 720. So it does give you that extra level of quality. But with quality comes, you have to have that internet speed that can actually support that as well.
Can I jump in here? I want to pick up on,
sure.
Especially from Anna's point of view, because she's using TriCaster, which I'm guessing is probably broadcasting in 4K. So 720p is the 770 pixels is the speed that most of the entry level products are running on. StreamYard, Remo, which is the site we've been trying. I think Be Live 720. Now that's fine for your phone and your tablet, but it gets incredibly pixelated and quite unprofessional when you're trying to edit it. We're hoping that the 1080 becomes the standard. What's your thoughts on the idea of, is it worth upscaling to 1080 or 4K if you want to do a show, or is that an unnecessary level of complexity for a beginner?
I don't know if it increases the level of complexity. It may just be, how quality of a camera you have, what kind of investment you want to make into what you're using to record the show. And really it kind of depends on your audience. Like, what is your intent? What do you plan to do? What is your long-term vision for your show? If you want to eventually get picked up by a larger platform that will want that quality, then you'll want to invest in that and have that quality up front, or at least have the goal of working toward it. But, again, it goes back to that, what is good enough? What is good enough for you? What is good enough for your audience? And is it the kind of show where somebody's going to be watching it on their large screen smart TV, in which case you want that quality? I think it depends on the content and who you're trying to reach.
Which in that case, I need to put on more makeup if it's on your big screen TV.
What do you thought on that, Doyle? Am I over exaggerating this 720p, or because it's a pain point for me because I love editing.
Yeah.
And I will do some snippets from each of us, and I want everyone to be in glorious 1080p when they're on my laptop. I mean, I want to see you in full screen, and I want to see at least 1080p. But when it's 720 and below, it gets a bit pixelated. It looks a bit pretend, looks a bit artificial and a little bit unprofessional. Am I overstating that, or would that?
Well, I think it's important, but I think most people have come to the realization that a grainy video is okay. But the problem is that, noisy audio is not okay. I think a lot of us can get to the understanding that, I can kind of sit through and watch. I know it's a little bit blurry, but I'm not going to make a big deal of it. But if I can't hear it, I can't really understand what they're saying. There's too much background noise, or the microphones aren't loud enough, or whatever the case may be. There's something wrong with the audio. It clicks. You know what? I turn that off. I can get by with 720, and even if smaller, if you're watching it on your mobile. But I think that's something that we need to look at. And actually, a comment from Linda was that StreamYard uses 1080. I'm not sure. I thought it was only 720. Actually, no, I think it is 1080. You might be right, Linda. We've sort of been testing all these, and they're all kind of clouding into my mind here. But I think if you can broadcast with the higher quality, that gives you the better quality for replays and that sort of thing as well. So that could be quite important.
Repurposing, like what Anna's talking about. What Anna's talking about here is really powerful. Like, remember, the Oregonian is picking up her feed, and if you just did this in a sort of a half-baked way, and you were just doing it in your lounge room with the kids running around, I mean, they wouldn't have picked it up, would they? I mean, they wouldn't have. It's not in their interest to show that 2-star product. But the fact that you've gone to an extra level, and I do want you to tell listeners what the mic you're using, because I have heard this phrase before, this little lapel mic, You're using a little lapel mic. Tell me about why that's important and how it improves the sound.
I think there's Yeti mics out there that are fantastic. There's a whole range of mics that are great. I I use a lav mic because this is basically what I used for years as a broadcast news anchor, and it's what I'm used to. It's a very similar setup. If you were able to see the studio, it's a 3-point lighting setup. I have soundproofing panels on either side because again, trying to reach a higher quality of audio. If you have hard surfaces that your audio is bouncing off of, you can, not for very much money, invest in some soundproofing pads and just put them up around the area where you are recording, and even the ceiling where you are recording. Again, I have amazing engineers, engineer friends to thank for helping with the audio side of this setup, because one of my husband's friends from the radio station was able to lend his expertise in setting up our studio so that it would be audio friendly. I've seen on the internet that, just people who are doing like voiceover work or any kind of work where their audio is particularly important, it doesn't cost very much to buy some kind of setup so that you can improve the sound quality of what you are recording. Otherwise, you sound like you're recording, in your house or in your garage, and the sound is bouncing and echoing off of
or in a closet.
every surface.
And
as
Doyle has said, people will tolerate pixelated video, but we will not tolerate poor audio. We just will not. Well, that's a fair comment, isn't it?
That's been my understanding, and me personally, but also what I've sort of experienced in the field as well. So
yeah, okay.
All right. So let's keep rolling here. We're almost done, and then we can close off and go from there. So layout of a host panel and customization, number 16. It allows you to do a lot, eCAMM, right? Like I can move all these graphics around live. I can set up layers and scenes and that sort of thing. I haven't advanced to that stage yet, but you can sort of do those graphics quite easily. But it can be a little bit complicated as well to set up. The next level is from an overlay to a scene, right, where everything comes and goes, and I just push a button and away I go. So definitely some things to improve there. Platform stability, something crashed right at the beginning. I don't know if it was Skype or if it was eCAMM. We seem to be okay now. Seems reasonable. I have used it before in a live scenario also, and it has seemed fairly stable as well. So it keeps going once the tough gets going. What's that saying?
The tough get going when the going gets tough. The tough
yeah, there you go. There you go. Perfect.
You want me to sing?
All right. Yeah.
Multi-talented.
Yeah.
You guys are hilarious.
Well, I was going to say, I don't mind broadcasting in 720, but I don't know if you can actually take me in 1080. Too much to look at. Anyway, let's continue. Create download recordings in different formats. Yes, you can create a download, but it's only through the actual platform itself. You can record directly if it's a practice run on eCAMM, but you can't otherwise. Number 19, ease of it.
Can I just pick up on what you've just said there
Sure.
for the audience? And I'm interested in what you do here, Anna. We can record to your Mac, and so many of the sites that we broadcast to don't have the facility to take a recording, Periscope, for instance. So what we have done as a default is we've always sent at least one feed to Facebook, because we can at least get the video there. Yeah. Now that's very important when you want to do replays. How does TriCaster do it, and what do you recommend in regards to recording? How important is that?
I think it's super important to have that material. TriCaster actually records within the TriCaster itself, so you have a version that records onto the TriCaster. For myself, we have it set up so that it records a high quality version of the show. So really like maximum full resolution.
Okay.
And then just via a USB cable out of the back of the TriCaster, we have it set up so that it records automatically onto an external hard drive an MP3 version, which makes creating the podcast so much easier because it's already an MP3. It records a high quality version, so like a 1080 version, and then it also records like an MP. Oh, what is it? Just like a web version, like so the 720 version that you would, upload to YouTube.
Yeah, okay, no worries.
So it
sorry to interrupt, but
simultaneously does that
my
during the show.
My job on this show is to decode, because that's what the show's called, live streaming decode. I get exactly what you're talking about, but I'm trying to bring it back to the people that are sitting at home going, what did he say? MP4? What's that?
Yeah.
So sorry, but I want to be.
You mean translate, Keith?
I want to translate. So keep going.
Cool.
You're up to 19.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I just wanted to quickly say Linda sends her love. I love Keith's laugh, which yes, that is your trademark laugh. So actually, that should be our laugh track. So when we say a joke, I'll plug in Keith's laugh track.
I'll have to do a little bit of a session when I'll just sort of.
Yeah, I just did that. I just did that laugh track. That wasn't you, Keith. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Number 19, ease of video editing and highlighted speaker view. So something like we have to manually sort of change the view. Something like with Zoom, we can, for example, I just want to show everybody that we can sort of highlight the specific view, get rid of Keith there. So it's just me. So we can sort of rearrange the people on the screen. The challenge is that they become a different scene and then I have to move the graphics. But anyway, the point is that you can do that. So we can sort of have the highlighted speaker view in something like Zoom. It's done automatically. If you sneeze or if you cough, then you become the big speaker. So that's why it's important to mute your mic when you're on Zoom, everybody. Episode management, number 20. No, we don't have anything that actually allows for that. You have to do it in a third party. So in this case, we save it. I use repurpose.io. It then saves to the Google Drive and basically saves it to YouTube as well. So you kind of have to manage that as well. All right. So overall, I know you don't necessarily use eCAMM, Anna, but based on what we've talked about, how would you sort of rate the skill level, basic, advanced, or expert?
For eCAMM, it sounds pretty advanced, like somewhere between moderate and expert for people who want to kind of up their game. Based on what you're saying, I haven't experimented like you have with the other platforms.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. What would you say TriCaster is sort of in that range of capabilities?
I mean, given that I'm still learning it, it's going to be on the...
We need a new category. Let's call it astronaut, right?
Astronaut.
No, I mean, it's funny because the friend who helped me set it up is constantly, I'm like apologizing profusely to him all the time because he almost knows now that I'll be calling him or texting him on a Monday morning going, why isn't this working? I don't understand. It's doing this. And so I'm thankful that he's still willing to provide, IT support on that end. But I'm 65 shows in. I would say I'm about 80%, I'm at about a 75 to 80% comfort level now with using the equipment than I was when I first started. So take that for what you will.
How do you control it then from where you're sitting? Like you're sitting on like a stool kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Are you near your computer, or do you have like one of those touch pads that sort of recreates the scene and adds graphics, or how do you actually manage the show from where you're sitting? Or do you have somebody helping you?
I do. So there's two ways to go about it. You can actually set up your iPad or even your iPhone to, or some kind of tablet to have kind of a virtual control booth right on your device. So you can, set it up to talk to the TriCaster and communicate with it that way and change views and change commands that way from where you're sitting while you're on camera. I have a hard time bifurcating my brain that way. Like I could probably do it if I really had to, and I was contemplating having to do it in the midst of this pandemic for safety reasons. But we figured out a way to safely continue to have my producer come in and actually hit the buttons, if you will, to basically start the program, the macro that starts the show, change the different takes that we do. So we'll go from like a single shot of me here to a shot of my guest wrong side, in the screen, to a split shot, to, you know, rolling the end of the show, which with the graphics and the music, calling in the B-roll. Like, for me, it's vital to have a second person to be able to do that, so I can focus more on the content of what I'm saying and what the guest, more importantly, is saying, and less so on the technical aspect of actually making the, you know, broadcast magic happen.
The show. Yeah. I know that's hard. And it's hard for me too, because you know, you have to separate watching and listening and learning from our guests, but also managing and flipping and that sort of thing. So I've done shows solo and they're fine, but you don't usually, I find I don't use sort of that extra level of technology because you have to focus on the conversation too. So with Keith as a co-host, I think that's actually a good combination. Not only is he smart and good looking, but he can also talk when I'm busy trying to, oh, what do I got to do here? Or I got to switch this over. So
Yes.
all right. So the last question, and then we'll wrap up. On a scale of 1 to 5 stars, how do you rate the overall platform? And then what is your one key takeaway? So what was the sort of final message, Anna, you'd like to deliver? And then we'll get to Keith and then we'll drop off. So,
You know, I'll leave it to you to rate the platform, because I'm not the one running it on your end. You've had much more experience in last shows that you've done using eCAMM, and you'll know much better how to compare it. What I've been impressed with so far, just looking at it on my laptop while we've been live, is that it auto-generates captions while we are live. Like, that's a pretty cool option. Have the other platforms that you used done that as well?
not that I can tell. No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's we tested that, didn't we, Keith, on Monday?
Yeah.
Or Tuesday? Yeah, it was quite good. It's only for the extra voices though, so it's not a complete conversation, it looks like. So I can't see my captions, only you can see them, so I can't basically have a full caption file. But it's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, for, you know, friends of mine that are hearing impaired, I think that's a valuable tool to be able to have captions during a live stream.
Yeah.
Usually I have to go back and, you know, add captions later that are generated based on the broadcast through Facebook or some other platform. And, you know, I guess my advice to people would just be to understand that whether you like it or not, this is where the technology is headed. So, you know, if you want your organization to be on the forefront, if you want it to have a voice, whether you run a business, a small business, a large business, a nonprofit, you have to have a presence. You have to have your brand out there in some form on social media. It can be very intimidating, very daunting to try to go down this road, but it can also be a lot of fun and a fantastic way to engage with your clients, your customers, your audience in a new and more meaningful way. So do lots of practice runs. Because even when you do practice runs, I noticed that Erica, who made a comment on our live broadcast right now, was saying that, you know, even with practice runs, she has, you know, recently had an issue trying to connect to Zoom for an event and could not. It felt terrible. So important to do checks before, but from experience, sometimes you do it and you still have issues, and that is so true. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you will be, and you know, it really can open up a lot of avenues for you to reach the people that you are trying to reach in a more meaningful way.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really important. That it comes down to your audience, that you want to connect with them. So yeah, the tools are secondary. It's how do you actually make that connection? Fantastic. Keith, you want to wrap up then?
Well, first things first.
How would you rate it?
First things
Go
first,
ahead,
I just want to thank Anna for coming in. Like, you are, I'm in awe of what you're doing, and I'm so honoured that you took the time to come on our little show in Australia. You know, we're
all the way
mucking
down
around.
under, mate.
We're mucking around, really. You know, that can be a GIF. We're mucking around. We're mucking around.
Mucking around, mate.
You know,
I love it.
We're just mucking around. But you've come on our show, and you've said, look, okay, well, you can tell you've come from the industry. This is where we are going. And we need, in some format, to play this game, whether it's with StreamYard or Be Live at 720p, or whether it's with TriCaster and eCAMM at 4K. We need to play this game because this is where the industry's going. And we don't have to adjust. We can just simply read the local paper if you can still get it. And you can go to the local cafe and hang out if you want to. But the world is changing into a very much more interactive format. On the call today, we've had you in Portland, Oregon. I'm in Melbourne. Doyle is in Perth. Linda is in Connecticut. Erica is in Jamaica. Gail is in LA. Right there, we have a global family live on Facebook, communicating with each other. And that's the show we want to do. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. How can people find out more about your show, and where do you want to take your show?
The possibilities are endless. Reach out to me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for Anna Canzano. You can check out my show at thatexpertshow.com. And I share your, affinity for this format, because it really does. I mean, it's amazing to me that I can be here talking to you. We can be reaching an audience worldwide, and truly, maybe particularly in these times right now, it makes the world feel smaller, and that's really fulfilling.
Perfect. Keith, what do you rate eCAMM?
Well, I really like it. I don't have a Mac, so I'd have to dial it back because it's only for Mac users. But I would give it 4 out of 5 because it looks great. It's quite easy to use once you're in it. If you have a Mac, we've had to use Skype to connect, but the visual presentation style, I think, makes it worth the effort. So if you started with StreamYard, which is super simple on your PC, it's $25 a month, and you thought, I want to go more, I want to do more, as Anna said, I think there's something deeper going on here. I don't want to just be a hack. Not that you would be, but I just think that eCAMM, look, this is important. With the pandemic and everyone jumping on their phone and doing TikToks in their pajamas, which is the thing, right? We need to separate ourselves out with quality content. We have content. This is not a lark.
We don't need more content. We need better content.
We need better content. This is good content. This is education.
No, this is awesome content.
Substantial content.
With Anna here, this is awesome content.
Jumping around, doing a boomerang, having an ice cream, because everyone can.
I don't know. That. Some of those TikTok people are pretty talented.
Okay.
As entertainment.
As entertainment.
Yeah.
But the thing that I love about what Anna said is that she wanted a show that was educational, about longer form. So with eCAMM, I think we'll continue to do eCAMM because you've got a Mac and it's working. And I would recommend that. It's probably my second favorite platform other than StreamYard because I've got a PC. Yeah. And I do like the democratization idea. I do like the idea that, StreamYard's $25 a month and everyone can do it. I can't see myself buying a TriCaster and having it in a box and setting up a room and actually asking my mates to come around and push the buttons. I mean, I can't see that for the average person in the street, which means that your show is always going to be up a notch.
Yeah. Well, the quality.
So you came on.
Yeah.
I'm going to be tracking you. I want to see this. I'm right at the beginning. I want to be part of your journey.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, Anna. I really want to thank you as well. And for all our guests and audience who are watching it, you can start with our live streaming launchpad. Go to bit.ly/livestream-launchpad. That actually has some of the previous episodes, our 20-point criteria, some of the toolkits that we use as well that you can check out and kind of get started if you haven't already done so. So again, want to thank Keith, my co-host, Anna, super amazing guest on our show, and for myself, Doyle Bueller, thanks for joining us. If you do have any questions, please ask them in the question or get in touch with us. As you can see, thanks everybody, and we will see you online.
See you later.
Bye.